You know, Vince, I've got a great tomato crop this year. I really do. But what happens next year, the year after? It seems like your company, Smart Yields, could help. You could tell me, what I'm doing right and what I need to do better to make sure I have good tomato crops year after year in this kind of small farmer type era. Why don't you tell us about Smart Yields?
Absolutely. Well, you hit the nail right on the head, and that's really what we're trying to do here. Is we're trying to give the small farmers more data science. And what that means is really we're trying not to reinvent the wheel here. We see a lot of other industries that have done a great job of providing insights in terms of sensors and data to give that user more insights in terms of what they need to do and when they need to do it and how much they need to do it. So for a small farmer, for example, like yourself, growing your tomatoes, well, the first question you got to ask is which varieties should you grow based on your climate? Right? Which varieties should you grow based on what you want to eat? Right? What grows best in your type of soil? And that's really what we're trying to get down to. The bottom line is we're trying to give more information in a way that small farmers like ourselves, but even it scales to the largest farms in the world. Really, the fact of the matter is we don't have enough data in the ag sector. And that's the big thing here. I mean, we've got great technology in terms of the corn and soil, but that's really the big picture here, because we tried to do that when we started this company. We took all the technologies and applied to the small farmer. Well, for one thing, that's a monocrop versus a multi-crop. And really comes down to recipes. So really, there's no one recipe for all. And what we've realized today is that we have microclimates. And microclimates in between fields, microclimates in between indoor growing, is really what we're trying to identify, giving that insights for small farmers to then lower their inputs, right? Fertilize when they need to, right? And the traditional way of farming has always been, kind of throw everything in the kitchen sink, because you never want to have too little of whatever input you're having, of course, because that would be silly. So you always put overage, but that's causing a lot of stress on our environmental conditions. Fertilizer runoff. It's going into our bays, our rivers. And now, of course, the biodiversity aspect to that in terms of algae blooms, dead zones, it's a big issue.
And so from a size standpoint, when we talk small farmer, what kind of sizes are you talking about here?
Truth be told, if we can design this, and it always comes down to scale and cost, right? So if we can design it we call them the yardners, the backyard gardeners. If we can get those folks on board using hardware, low-cost hardware, and data science, and I like to use this analogy a lot. Instead of buying the $1,000 iPhone, you lease it, you rent it, because in a year or 2 years, you can upgrade the hardware. Right? And that's really what we focus on here, a subscription-based model. So our smallest farmer right now is 10 little plants, in an indoor facility, in Eugene, Oregon. Our largest, basically is the largest global farming operation in the world. So really what I think the insight here is we see is that because we can scale to the smallest, even the larger guys see the value, because they all want more insights. They're all asking the same questions, tell me more about my water usage, tell me more about my climate. Let me cater my recipes not to each field, but each individual row within each field.
Clearly, your value add is the back end and giving actionable things that can be done to improve things. But what about the package as far as sensors and connecting to the internet? How do you play in that area?
That's a real kind of, again, that nail on the head, because unfortunately or fortunately, that's the secret sauce in trying to bridge that chasm that we talk about in ag tech. And unfortunately, we have a lot of connectivity issues. Not everywhere has coverage, right? And the real big thing, which is why we're doing this today and why we couldn't do this 2 years ago or 5 years ago, is because of the technology. We've got this real nexus. We've got Arduino Raspberry Pi microcontrollers that really just came in the market around 7 years ago. They're still in a do-it-yourself phase. But really, we're trying to use those low-cost sensors and microprocessors to get this information to us. We're taking sensors that have been developed decades ago, and we're adding this what's called middleware. It's the transition from analog data to digital data. And that's what we're doing. We're not reinventing the wheel here. We're leveraging what other industries, automotive, supply chain, finance, retail, they've done in terms of adoption of hardware and data and applying it to the oldest industry in the world, ag.
And arguably the most important, because that's how we all eat. So from getting the data back, using Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, what are you using there?
All the above. There really is no silver bullet here. But the next generation of sensors are using different protocols, right? They're using protocols that have a much larger, longer throw, using much less energy. So when we see this in the wine industry a lot, wineries are one of the early adopters of technology. However, for a winery to adopt hardware sensors, they actually have to use infrastructure. They have to put pipe and they have to put energy out there, or they're using much larger solar panels. And so the new low-cost sensors that we're using today and in the future, they can be run off a very small solar panel, like really this size, or even then we utilize battery storage capabilities that can basically extend for the entire harvest. You don't have to worry about battery storage then, or energy consumption.
But you collect the data via wireless methods generally, or?
Yeah, so we're basically sending it to the cloud and back down to our mobile device. I think a good example would be we're designing for the small farmer that's working out in their fields every day. We're not designing for someone that's sitting in their AC-controlled office, with a staff of individuals working for them, on their desktop. That's not who we're designing for. We're designing for someone who basically, works all day. Most of the time, they have another job to pay for their farm. They're lifestyle farmers, but they love what they do. And one day, they would love to be doing it full time.
You are a startup. I understand you have a number of farms already, but where do you see this going?
Our end goal, obviously, is the global network of small farms. There's 570 million farms in the world, and 99% of them are small farmers. So when you think about making impact, that's who we really want to target here. We will always support, the 1% of farms out there, in terms of our ag tech, because they'll adopt our technology simply. But really, we're empowering what we call non-traditional farmers. So when we say non-traditional, it's women, it's students, it's senior citizens, it's disabled mentally and physically, it's disabled veterans, it's ex-cons. And the interesting thing about those groups is they've already adopted agriculture as a part of their daily practice. They're using it for PTSD in terms of the military. They're using it for in terms of arthritis pain or keeping their kind of the wits around them. But the interesting thing about that is that they love agriculture and they love being in nature and they love getting their hands dirty. And of course, the only way we can change the world is through basically growing our own food. If every person could grow one meal a week, that's how we change the world.
Excellent. Well, I look forward to hearing your progression here.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we're currently in 4 states. We're expanding into Asia, and so we're growing rapidly. So we really appreciate all the information and insights, and people just sharing information with us. So,
well, thank you.
Thank you very much.